one night we camped out and we left candles burning, and the candle like fell over into the wall and caught the whole place on fire. And I woke up in a burn unit. I started practicing like a maniac. The least amount of hours I would practice a day would be 5 hours, and I would practice all of it, 12 hours a day. If I'm looking at your face and I hit a button real quick, your face will explode into 1,000 heads and then come back. So that's like one effect, or like your face will go sideways or up and down.
Yeah.
You can relate visuals however you want. So my left foot is playing melodies and my left hand is playing melodies, and I'm singing and playing the drums and then triggering what's happening behind us sometimes with these effects.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a lot.
I thought about doing animation for the video. He's like, you should do CGI. And I'm like, do you know anybody that does that? And he's like, yeah, I know how to do CGI. It took us 3 years because he was working alone.
He's a drummer, motivational speaker, and composer. His book, Drumming and Flow, Breathing Techniques for Drumming Excellence, is available now, and he does it all while missing most of his fingers. Ray LeVier, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it being here.
Yeah, I'm so excited to hear more about your story, get into this book that you have, some of the music you've released, just everything.
All right, man, let's get into it.
Yeah, so let's start off with just that book that I mentioned, Drumming and Flow. It's gotten acclaim from all these great drummers like John Riley and Lenny White. How does it feel to like get all this like industry notice from something you've worked on?
It's awesome and kind of surreal at the same time, and it still feels weird to say my book, and it's like
Yeah.
you work so hard on something, and then all of a sudden you're holding this piece of paper in your hand, and like, it just seems a little surreal. It's my first book, which is awesome. I've always wanted to write a book, but always felt like, you know, I didn't want to like kind of rehash what was already out there because there's so many great drum books. And during around the time of COVID, I started doing these breathing techniques from a guy called Wim Hof. Some of you might have heard of Wim Hof and his breathing techniques. They call him
Yeah.
the Iceman, and he does this, heavy breathing, and they buried him up to his neck in ice, and his body temperature like barely dipped below normal, and they thought he was some crazy athlete that could just, had these superpowers, and he was like, no, 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 I can teach this to anybody, and he's proven it that you can mess with your spacing on
Like
the word.
body temperature,
Yeah,
what's
your
like,
physiological things that your body does automatically, like your heart beating and your
yeah.
temperature regulation, like those things supposedly, according to the science books, can't be messed with, and he's kind of proven that you can. So anyway, that's kind of a loose version of what he does. But I got into it because when I started doing it, I noticed it really started helping me with, just anxiety or stress or, whatever was happening with me. It seemed to, at the end of the session, it seemed to really help me out. So I started doing the Wim Hof thing, and then I started exploring other breathing modalities, and just kind of found all these other ones that were just as useful in different ways, and they all kind of did different physiological things to the body. So that was kind of my beginning down this deep rabbit hole of the breathing stuff. And so I always had this thing in the back of my head of, I should write a book, and everybody's like, you should write a book, and I was like, yeah, I don't know. And then I thought, like, nobody's really talking about breathing in terms of drumming and being, an athlete. And everybody's talking about breathing, but nobody's really talking about the applications towards drumming. So I thought that was a good loophole and a good in to fill a hole that really nobody was kind of talking about yet. Um, so that was how I got into writing the book. And then, as you research, you find out more stuff. And there's a guy, Dr. Andrew Huberman, who has a lab podcast, He's a neuroscientist professor out at Stanford, and he, I started listening to him a whole bunch, and he was mentioning this stuff. The one of his episodes was how to learn skills faster, and I was like, well, that sounds cool. So I started listening to it, and you know, I just got so many takeaways from that. One of them was the fact that if he has this thing, well, he doesn't, but there's a study called the gap effect. So if you're doing anything, you're trying to learn a language or scales on a piano or a drum rudiment or whatever, if you take a break randomly for 10 seconds, your brain keeps replaying it 20 times faster. And of course, the whole thing about learning a skill is repetitions, right? Like you gotta, if the brain pathways are, kind of rivers, you want to flood them with water as much as possible to
Yeah.
try the Grand Canyon effect eventually. So, you get these repetitions by doing nothing, and I was like, wow, that's pretty awesome. So I put that in my book, and I thought people could really benefit from knowing that too. And related to that, in conjunction, is getting good sleep because when we sleep at night, our brain goes back over and kind of scrubs everything we've done through the day, and it gets hardwired into our nervous system when we wake up the next day. If we get good sleep, it gets, deeperly, it gets deeper
It's,
into
yeah.
our nervous system. So the term muscle memory, muscles don't have memory. They're just, fiber, but they're attached to your nervous system. So your nervous system gets patterned by, repetitions and of course good sleep. So those were some things that I put in my book that I figured people could benefit from. And it's kind of the writing the whole book was really kind of it was for me. I always was trying to become a better musician, and I always felt like the biggest obstacle that got in the way of my drumming was me and my thinking and or poor thinking. So I was always looking for techniques to help me calm my mind, and I try to meditate and be mindful, and read books about being mindful and. Um, just kind of Zen philosophies, and some of that's in the book. And so all these things, anything that can benefit to help me gain skills faster and become a better musician, get out of my own way, I thought was, something that other people could probably benefit from as well. So that's the mad plot behind my book. Oh, and this is Peanut,
Yeah.
by the way, my
I think,
dachshund.
and
He's
and
chilling.
so with like writing this book and it now being out and everything, how does that feel any different, or does it feel any different from like working on a song or an album and putting that out?
Yeah, it's totally different process. Writing a book was pretty daunting, because it's just you and uh, the keyboard, and you're trying to get stuff out of your head and onto the keyboard, and um, you know. But I have to say, it really helped me. The process really helped me to learn who I am and like, okay, take a break, go to the gym or go for a walk. And so that's something that I kind of don't do with my drumming. Like I'm so like just stubborn about getting off the drum seat and taking a break because it matters so much to me. And when I started out with this book, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to get obsessed over this book. I can't, you know, like go down this rabbit hole
Yeah.
of, you know, being the taskmaster, and like I'm gonna do whatever I can. I'm gonna show up every day, whether it's 20 minutes or 2 hours. And when I'm done, I'm done, and I'm gonna go for a walk. So it kind of helped me across the board with my other artistic endeavors with writing music and playing the drums. Um, and just not beating myself up so much. We're all like, when something matters so much to you, it's like it's really hard to not beat yourself up because you're like putting all this weight on your shoulders to get to the next level. And you know, so anyway, for what
Yeah.
it's worth.
Hey heroes, sorry to interrupt that podcast episode, which I hope you are enjoying, but I wanted to tell you about my clothing line, Quest Clothing. Ever since I started really pursuing YouTube and music and all these creative things that I do, I've dreamed about starting this clothing line specifically. I had the name, I had the idea like for years before I started it, and now it's finally here. You can wear clothes like this. I have sweatshirts available, t-shirts, even clothing for like my music with cover arts and lyrics and things like that. It's all super, super cool. And right now is the best way for you guys to support me across everything I do. So be sure to check out the Quest Clothing web store with the link in the description and follow at Shop Quest Clothing on Instagram for updates about collections, discounts, things like that. Anyways, I don't want this self-sponsorship to take too long, so let's get back to the episode. On the music side, like drumming and composing as well. You've made music for big TV networks like TLC, Fox Sports. How are these deals coming about, or how do you start working with these companies?
I fell into it with a good friend of mine, Rich Tizzoli, who has been doing this a long time, and he's got close to 500,000 cues, TV cues, we call them. They're not really songs, they're cues. They're like one
Yeah.
minute, a little over a minute, and they're just kind of vibes and like little groove ideas that people use that underpin the what's happening on screen with a lot of these shows that are reality shows. I mean, like 90+% of them are all reality shows that are popular these days. And if you turn the sound off and you watch them, it's like super boring. It's like I don't even know what's going on here. So the music really propels the energy of what's happening. So I got into it through my friend Rich, and he kind of took me under his wing and taught me how to play the drums for TV Land, which is it has to be very, very simplified,
Hmm.
So um, because you don't want anything to, you know, kind of jumble up what's happening with the dialogue. So it has to be something that kind of works underneath the dialogue.
Yeah. You don't want
And
it to distract from the actual like show or whatever's
uh,
going on screen.
so they don't really give us much direction. They just tell us the BPM, which is the speed for you non-musicians. So like higher speeds, higher BPMs, like 160 and up, um, are promote more energy and action. So most of the time they want action, they want energy to uplift a scene. And then a lot of other ones are slower ones, but they're more like kind of this bluesy, swampy kind of stuff. A lot of slide guitar. Um, so when I work alone, I work pretty much out of the box. I don't play guitar. I don't play bass. I play xylophone and piano a little bit. And the way my hands are, like I can't knock out chords with my fingers.
Hmm.
So what I do is with the computer, I'll punch them in with the mouse. And I went to school at William Patterson and took 3 years of had a BA in music performance and learned a lot about keyboard and marimba was my minor in school. So um, I had all this knowledge, but can't, like I said, couldn't play, chords.
Yeah.
But I think it kind of helped me a little better in the long run because I'm like dissecting chords. So it really helped me, my brain to piece everything together to see what's happening. So that's my method is working in the box. I use MIDI a lot. I use Ableton Live, and that's a great program.
Yeah.
A lot of people use Pro Tools, and I kind of hate Pro Tools, even though it's the industry standard. It's just
Yeah.
everything about it is such a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
we just kind of get light direction, and we, knock them out pretty quick. And it's a volume game. There's not a lot of money involved, so You get paid by the second that your TV cue is being aired. And most of the time, they'll take little pieces of your cue, um, which leads me to the next thing is that you really have to write for the editor because the editor is the guy that is going to be using your stuff. So a lot of people send in songs, and like they don't want songs, they want very specific formulaic TV cues. That's section A, section B, and in between section A and section B, you might have like a drum break or just space. So that makes it easy for the editor to go back because he's sitting there all day just trying to, put music underneath uh,
Yeah.
these shows, and like I can imagine like how many shows he has to roll out per week. So you try to
Yeah.
make it easier for the editor. So that's the
So, so in terms of drums, like I'm in school for music now as well, and like we're learning all about like certain chords attaching to emotions or like
Mhm.
different like feelings and styles. In terms of like drumming for that, is it mostly focused on the BPM that sets it, or are there any certain things like certain pieces of a drum kit that help make different emotions or situations?
I mean, on the drum set, it's not a tonal instrument, so to get
Yeah.
uh, emotions out of the drums, and it's more like how aggressive is it or how light you're hitting. So, like, if you want something to be more gentle to the ears, you would use like brushes or mallets and play quietly, and we would just kind of turn up the mics to kind of hyper mic. Um, and then if you're bashing really hard and playing fast or whatever, you're playing something aggressive, then you would you don't want the mics to pick up too much, so you would have to dial things down a little bit. So, um, but yeah, it's really up to um, the editors. There's not a lot of soft stuff on TV. Like if you sit and you watch TV, you're not going to hear a lot of ballady type of stuff, here and there, but most of it's dang dang, and it's like in your face, and because um, club owners know that, if you go to a club, like when you play loud music and like music that's a little more aggressive, people drink more, because there's like I think it's like a psychological thing of
Um,
they're
yeah.
kind of, they're kind of stressed out over this loud music, so they're like drinking more and they get a little more anxious about stuff and they get excited, and like so that I guess that's kind of a universal theme across the board. So like when people are watching a TV show, if you want to get them up, you and put energy into a scene, you would, put something up tempo, and so it's kind of
Yeah.
a basic psychological thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. And so in terms of like you mentioned, either it's going to school or even just like keeping up with drumming. I was reading about your story and like especially your determination, like after losing most of your fingers, what made you like so determined to keep going with drumming and all these things and like find a way to like make it work?
It's a good question. I just started playing the drums before my accident. And I guess I should tell the listeners what the accident was. We had a chicken coop in the backyard we kind of asked my mom if we could turn it into like a hangout fort, clubhouse, whatever you want to call it. And mom said, sure. So we would camp out in this thing in the backyard. And so one night we camped out and we left candles burning, and the candle like fell over into the wall and caught the whole place on fire. And I woke up in a burn unit. My brother and a friend were in there, and they like ran out. And by the time they ran out, I was just waking up and I started screaming. So they ran in and saved my life and pulled me out. And
Oh,
I thought I was having this crazy dream because we were down at the shore, and in the New Jersey shore, like there's these sand dunes that they don't want you to go on. So there's like these kind of rickety fences that, say do
yeah.
not go on. So I'm walking to the beach in my dream, and then these fences kind of encircled me, and I was like in this round pen, if you will, and the sun started getting really hot, and the sand started getting really hot. Everything started getting hot, so I started jumping up and down, and that was me coming out of the dream. And then I heard somebody in the dream, so I thought, say, put your hands over your eyes and cover your mouth, and so that was my friend that basically saved my life, and then he was rolling me on the grass, and I'm like, I thought I was at the beach, so I was trying to figure out why there's grass growing on the sand, and like why there's a tree growing in the sand, and I was like, this doesn't make any sense, and I'm like, well, it's a
Hmm.
dream, that's why. So I just thought I was dreaming, and I was in total shock, so they rushed me to the burn unit in Westchester Medical Center in New York, and uh, I spent the better part of 6 months just getting skin grafts. I was burned an inch above my navel, so they had to take skin from my lower half and cover up my upper half. And they had to worry about infection because your skin is like the first defense of, holding back all these bacteria that can kill you. So, um, it was just day in and day out, get me strong enough, and then go into the OR, and then, you know, I'd heal from whatever grafts they did, and then I'd have to go back on the OR once I was strong enough, and they had to keep me walking every day, and like I was like walking like a 90-year-old man at 12 years old. This happened to me, and like if you don't use your
Wow.
muscles, start to atrophy at any age.
Yeah.
So that was all these things I had to battle with, and but while I was in the hospital, one of the things I kept thinking about over and over was playing the drums, and it just made me feel good, and it was like kind of a vacation from reality in my mind to fantasize about playing the drums in front of people and being on stage. And um, so I told this to my mom and dad, and they said, well, that's good, you're thinking positive thoughts, and keep doing that, and when you get out, we'll get you a drum set. So that day came, and my dad took me to the music store and got me a drum set, and started, just playing my one rock beat that I knew how to play, which was just, a simple rock beat. And I don't know, I just, it was something that I could do after my accident that really gave me a sense of purpose um and confidence. So, I just stuck with it. And then my dad was like, well, you should get some lessons, so you could do it right. And I was like, okay. So I started taking lessons. Um, and I don't know, time just flies, and then next thing you know, you're 18, and everybody in school is like, what are you going to do for a living? And I'm like, I don't know. I haven't thought about it. I'm like, well, the only thing I'm good at is the drums. So I guess I'm going to be a drummer. And once I heard myself say those words, I think like I really put
It
things
like
in.
cemented it for you.
Yeah, it cemented it for me. And I started, they say if you're going to do something like quit smoking, you should tell everybody because it kind of cement. And so I started telling everybody, like, I'm going to be a drummer. And then so I was like, well, I should go to school if I'm going to be a drummer. So I decided to go to college, and I did. I went to William Patterson University, like I said, and got a BA in performance, jazz performance. And they have one of the best jazz programs there, um, like second or third in the entire country. So I was super stoked to have gotten into that school. So once I got into school, I realized how far behind I was musically, and I just got my ass kicked on a daily basis, which was good. And I started practicing like a maniac, just, anywhere from the least amount of hours I would practice a day would be 5 hours. And I would practice all the way up to 12 hours a day. And I had a stack of books. I was studying with this guy, Sal LaRocca, this Italian guy in New Jersey. And he just, um, literally was just like, if he said jump, I was like, how high? Whatever he said to do, I just did it. And he said, get this book, get this book. Here's a book for reading. Here's a book for four-way coordination. Here's a funk book. Here's a Latin book. Learn your sambas. And, you know, if you're going to be a drummer, you should really be versed in as many styles as you can, because that'll help you get more gigs, because if you're just a rock drummer and somebody calls for a jazz gig and you're like, well, sorry, I don't know how to swing, or vice versa, so and I always loved every different style of music, I loved rock and metal and I loved funk and I loved classical and I love jazz and like hip hop and country and like um and as a producer like I can really if I don't like the music I can really appreciate how it's produced, like I'm
Yeah.
not a huge fan of country honky tonk type of music, but I listen to it from, different angles and like I can appreciate the lyrics and I can appreciate the guitar parts and I can appreciate how it was engineered. So there's always something to find and something.
Are you a music artist looking to get your music on Spotify, Apple Music, and basically every platform? Then you should check out DistroKid. DistroKid is a music distribution service. It's what I use to get my music out, and I find it really, really helpful. You can set up all the credits for your songs, put in lyrics and even like times lyrics and things like that, and manage all your releases from one account or one dashboard. It is super helpful, and I don't think I would have gotten started with music as early as I did without DistroKid. So if you're interested in any of their plans, which I'll put on the screen here, and yes, that does say $2 a month for music on all platforms that you need things like that. That's $2 a month. I know some of you spend more on coffee each day than $2 a month to get music wherever you want. But anyways, back to the point. If you use my link in the description, you will get 7% off of any of these plans to make it even cheaper. Plus it has so many cool features to help with your music, like pre-save pages, getting it on Instagram and things like that so people can add your music to posts. It is just super, super helpful, and it's what I've used since starting music. Like I said, use the link in the description, check out DistroKid, and get 7% off of any plan you want. Now, back to the episode. In that process of like basically just saying, I'm going to become a drummer and helping along that growing, I read that you grew up in a musical family. Did that kind of help show you that like drums or music was an opportunity or a career like yeah, through that, or I guess how did it help you growing up in a musical family already?
I guess it rubbed off because like my parents never were like you should do this or you should do that. Like my mom was a singer and then she kind of gave it all up to have kids, and my dad was always playing the piano in the house, and my sister was classically trained, and I always used to hear her playing scales. And my dad was always gigging on the weekends. And he had a company where he was a piano technician where he would get junky pianos from people's houses, and he would bring them home on this trailer hooked up to his car, and he would just literally gut the piano, and me and my brother would help him gut the piano and vacuum out all the junk inside, and if we found some change we'd keep it, and like that was a big part of growing up, was helping my dad with the pianos. So it was indirectly there, but they never forced anything down our throats. I came to the drums on my own. I just, I loved the way they sounded, and they were loud and fun to play, and physical, and I've always been a physical kid, and so I just kind of gravitated toward the sound of the drums. But it was really me that and my dad actually tried to talk me out of it at one point, and we had a conversation where he's like, "You sure you want to be a musician? It's a really hard life." And he's like, "Why don't you get into computers? Computers are getting big now." And it's like back in the day. And I was like, he's angry that he said that, but I just realized he was trying to protect me, and like he, from his experience, realized how hard it was. He tried getting a record deal, and uh, we drove to Nashville, and my dad talked to a record company, and like it never really panned out for him to the point that he was happy and
Yeah.
satisfied because he had a family to feed, and so I think he was just trying to protect me, and rightly so. It's one of the hardest businesses that you could imagine being in. And
Yeah.
but I think the key to people that are listening is, don't put your eggs in one basket, like diversify. like be really good at your instrument and know how to play a whole bunch of different styles if you're going to be like someone that's going to get hired to do different gigs. Become a really good reader, and learn how to engineer, learn how to produce, learn how to teach, you know, even like teaching on another instrument. Like I've taught kids piano, but very basic stuff like, the C scale, the D scale, and just
Mhm.
got them to, got them going. Like I'm no piano teacher by any means, but like I know enough about the instrument that I can get somebody going on a scale. So my point is diversify, and it's getting even harder today. And now with the advent of AI, like um, they recently did this study. It's really scary. They put out a whole bunch of AI written music, and like most of the people listening like thought it was amazing, and they had no idea who wrote it,
Oh boy. Yeah.
and that's only the beginning. It's the AI is going to get better and better. And so these record companies are, I don't even know what their thing is now, but like Spotify is like, it's known fact that they take their own artists or songs written by AI, and they put them in their playlist to like,
Yeah.
to
So
generate numbers. So it's getting really, really messed up out there, and
yeah.
there's a lot of things going on.
Hey, if you're like me and you're interested in the YouTube or creator space, you should check out The Publish Press. The Publish Press is a completely free newsletter founded by YouTubers Colin and Samir. They host their own podcast talking to some of YouTube's largest creators. They've edited some of the best content I've seen on YouTube, and now they're sharing their knowledge about the YouTube space with you for free. The Publish Press comes out 3 times a week, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, with everything going on with your favorite creators and platforms. And like I said, it's completely free. Just enter your email address to receive the Publish Press whenever it comes out, and that's it. So, what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description below, sign up to the Publish Press, and get all the info you need on the industry.
On the Spotify side of things, you're just like releasing music for streaming. I don't know how much physical media you have of your music, but like with your own music, this your latest song, for example, Uncharted Destiny from back in June, like is that something you're trying to focus on, or are you mostly focused on these like composing for TV deals and the like original music is a side part to that?
Well, I'm a musician first, and I love performing, so that's kind of where I put a lot of my energy. And the doing music for television, that's kind of my day gig, and it's a good form of income. It's not my main source of income. I mean, it supplements real good. I mean, and speaking of diversification, the other thing I do is I have some tenants. I'm a landlord, so that really helps out with finances. Um, my goal back in the day was like, all right, how am I going to stay creative and be an artist and do what I love doing and not having to get a day job and work for the man, if you will. And I did that, and it's, I did landscaping, and I helped my dad. My dad owned an insulation company that he acquired from my grandfather, and I did all these things for money and drove a van for a stationery company. And every time I was doing that, I kept thinking like, how am I gonna, you know, in the future, how am I gonna not do these things? And because I just wanted to be a musician full time and 100%. So that was what I kept focusing on. Like my goal was to just be able to have freedom to sit here all day and practice and write music and do what I want to do for myself. I chose a path of having no children, and I got a couple dogs, and those are my children. So like I just wanted a life of freedom to really pursue my craft, and that was the main goal for me. So that's really performing and writing, and that's at the forefront of my brain all the time. I have a new project with a good friend of mine, and it's this electronic duo where there's a lot of visuals involved, and it's the two of us, and we're both multitasking. We link our computers together through Ableton Live, and we have all this MIDI gear around us, and there's a program called Ebo Suite, which is kind of you can take any video and manipulate it the same way you would audio.
Oh,
So you
that's
can,
awesome.
can trigger, like if I'm looking at your face and I hit a button real quick, your face will explode into 1,000 heads and then come back. So that's like one effect, or like the whole thing will your face will go right sideways or up and down.
Yeah,
You can manipulate visuals however you want. And you can program it into the timeline, which is cool. Or you can hit a trigger to make the image that's behind us. You know, so it's really you can manipulate it on a deep level. So I just got this mallet station by Pearl, and it's a MIDI controller that I'm going to have on my left to trigger melodies, and part of it is dedicated to triggering. The other part of it's going to be for melodies uh, that we're going to perform live. And I also have a one octave um, keyboard that I play with my feet. That's the same thing that these organ players have underneath them. So they're playing bass
yeah,
lines with feet. And so I have one of those. So my left foot is playing melodies, and my left hand is playing melodies, and I'm singing and playing the drums, and then triggering what's happening behind us sometimes with these effects. So it's really
that's
fun.
awesome. Yeah, that's a lot.
Fun. Yeah, it's like, and we're like laughing. Franny and I are, and Franny is singing, playing guitar, and he has this a bass and a guitar that he actually like. This guy is like super creative, amazing artist. So the goal is to right now we're using footage that we find on the internet, and uh but the goal is to have it's going to be our all our content, and so there's going to be these kind of thematic stories that will are going to go along with what we're doing musically. And so Uncharted Destiny, the song that I put out, has a video to it. So we just finished formatting the video to play and trigger stuff behind us on these screens. So that's where we're going with all this is it's going to be our own visuals, our own footage that we're going to sync with the music, and it's going to be kind of this storyline rock opera type of vibe.
Yeah,
So yeah,
that's awesome. That's so cool.
that's in
And
the
and yeah, because that seems so like unique and like probably its own creative process or writing process from anything else that you do. So whether it's for that or even just like the music that you normally write and compose, what is your creative process like to write music or like create a new song?
That's a great question, and it's never the same. It's sometimes it's just a melody that you hear in your head. Sometimes it's from messing around with some chords, like I'll hear some cool chords, and the melody will come from that. Uh, Sometimes you hear a verse, sometimes I just hear a groove. Sometimes I hear a chorus. It's always different. Um, and I think the important thing is to honor the process, and um, a lot of other artists will agree that you should play with it for a little bit and then just leave it alone, like get up, go to the bathroom, or go and do some wash, or go to the
Yeah,
gym or whatever, and then save it for the next day, because you're working on something, and if you're too close to it, you don't you're not listening to what the song is trying to tell you. And like I think if you can kind of have that symbiotic relationship with writing a song, like the song will tell you like where it wants to go. And I think a lot of times it kind of just comes from the ether. It's not this egoic thinking that's like, I'm gonna make this happen. I mean, that's a big part of that's involved with it. But I think honoring the process for me is like getting up and walking away and then just kind of half think about it. And I think that's where there's a lot of stuff that can come in from the universe or whatever you believe. Um, and so, yeah, that's what works for me. And then sometimes, like if I'm stuck on something, um, I just leave it alone, and then it all of a sudden something will come to me. And if it doesn't, I don't freak out, and I'm just kind of trusting that it will eventually. And sometimes it takes a left turn, and it's like, well, I guess this is where the song is supposed to go, and that's just kind of life, right? Like a lot of
Yeah.
times,
Yeah.
you had this plan in mind that you were going to do this, this, and this, and all of a sudden you got a call from somebody, and like next thing you know, you're like working for Apple or something, like how did that happen? Or like, I don't know, so
Yeah.
uh trusting the process, I think, is something that is important.
Yeah, definitely. And especially like nowadays, it's that whole idea of like the process, I feel like has completely changed, especially with the rise of like social media and things like that. Like a lot of people now, it's like the norm to like be posting things on social media as promotion, and like that's now the process that you have to trust. Like keep putting things out on social media, and it'll work and whatnot. What is your general thoughts on like social media or promoting yourself through social media?
I kind of have a love-hate relationship with social media.
Hmm.
I don't like where it's taken us as a species, and how like soundbitey we've gotten, and it's just like the distraction level or the lack of concentration. Like people don't listen anymore. They don't know how to listen. Like when I was in school, uh, I studied with Rufus Reed, who was one of my instructors, and he was very adamant about going home, laying on the bed, turning all the lights out, and listening to an entire album without getting up, and like giving 110% focus on that. And like, so I think we've lost a lot of that. Um, and it's just kind of glitching our minds. And there's actually a term that I've heard called digital dementia that kids have because they're so used to flipping from one image to the next, and our brains don't know how to handle that because we're still dealing with a reptilian brain,
Yeah.
which the brain is still you know a reptilian brain, and we're forcing it all these images that the brain can't handle. So I don't know, there's that. But as a musician, it's really that's my only way to advertise myself. And it's pretty crazy like how many people around the world, like it's a global community now. So like for instance, I just went to NAMM out in California, and I had like 10 different people come up to me, and they're like, "Oh, you're that drummer on social media. I love your stuff." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." And they're like, "Can I get a picture with you?" And I was just kind of like blown away that like all these people from other countries that were here like saw me from the other side of the world. And so it's cool in that aspect. It's bringing us all together.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there'll be somebody listening to this that's like from another country, another part of the world that like would have never gotten a chance to hear this had we been, back 30 years ago, where, the only way to like get your stuff out there was to get a big record deal. And like if they promoted you and they put money behind you, then people from Russia or wherever would hear your music. But if you were a small act, it's like you would have to tour, and the only people that saw your stuff would be the people that saw you live when you toured. So I
Yeah. Or
think it,
even like instead of sitting here to record a podcast, it'd be like having you on like a live radio show, and like if you don't tune in, you missed it. Like it's gone and things like that versus
yeah,
this where you can keep coming back to it.
yeah. Like when I was a kid, like it was a big deal to see The Wizard of Oz, and they only played it once a year. So like if you missed it, that was it. It was like, or Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Like I'm totally dating myself, but like they played these stupid shows like once a year. And like Christmas shows, like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, like you could
Yeah,
only see that at Christmas time, and they played it once on NBC, only on one network, and that was it. So you were like dialed in a lot deeper than you are now. Now it's like, oh, I could just go on YouTube, and so that's kind of the cool thing about things. But I think the downside is like what I was getting back to is people don't really listen as deep as they used to. Like
yeah,
um, so it's give and take. And but I think there's a lot of power in the artist's hands now because you don't really need a record label, and record labels just basically they don't do anything for you. Like if
yeah,
you basically sell your soul and they own you, and you don't make you're still it's just like Spotify, you're making pennies on the dollar. And what they do is they kind of like give you this loan, and like you have to pay them back, and if you don't, it's just they'll pull the plug in a second. So I think
yeah,
social media is a good thing in terms of um, kind of getting your own thing out there. And if you have the energy and the power, you can really, you know, command where you want your career to go if you work hard enough at it.
yeah, definitely. And with the whole thought process of like, there are people who are probably watching this from another country or people who like maybe haven't heard of your music or your story before. If that's the case, what is there any song you've released that would be like take a listen to this to like hear what kind of music Ray LeVier makes?
Yeah, so Uncharted Destiny was a song that I just wrote during COVID, and it was a time where people were there was a lot of separation and people were sheltering in place, and like people were dying from COVID, and like they couldn't even say goodbye to their family members, and that was just kind of really strange. And so I kind of equated that to the song because the song always reminded me of space, and it just had this sound of being out in space, like journeying through the cosmos. That's just how I interpreted it. So I kind of started putting the two together and thinking how lonely it would be out in space, and like if you went away for years at a time and like couldn't say goodbye to your family and you were going to die in space or something. And like anyway, so it got me to thinking about this character that um journeys all the way out into space for like 6 years. um and but the backstory is that he his father was this David Bowie character, the man who fell to Earth. So this character is part alien. He in the movie he at one point has an affair with a Earthling woman. So I'm the child of the Earthling of this the alien and the Earthling woman. Um, and but I don't know that my father's part alien, and so I have these powers that come out to protect me because there's big plans for me because I'm the only bloodline left to the heir to the throne because my father, this alien, is from a race, the other side of the universe, and like
Yeah,
so he's about to die or like step down, and like I'm the only bloodline, so like they send this ship for me, and the ship basically grabs me and like whisks me off into the universe, and so that's basically what the song is about: is feeling lonely in space and not knowing what's going to happen and trusting the process. And it was all these things that I internalized artistically, and that's a big part of being an artist is like whatever's happening with you in your life, like you kind of write about it, and put it into artistic expression. So that's kind of what I did with COVID and all that. And it just I was going through a breakup with a girlfriend at the time, and I just had all these emotions that kind of poured out into the song. And so that was basically how I came to write this song. And then I called up my friend Franny, who I'm in this electronic duo with, and he's just a really gifted artist. And I mentioned to him, I'm like, I thought about doing, animation for the video. he's like, you should do CGI. And I'm like, do you know anybody that does that? And he's like, yeah, I know how to do CGI. I got a program called Blender and I can. So like this, it took us 3 years because he was working alone. And this is like an army of, you know, Pixar artists usually
Yeah.
have to like, do this. And so he was just doing it himself. And I don't know how he did it, but it was just pretty amazing. And so yeah, it took us like 3 years, and but now we're done with it, and we're trying to in it by getting together with him. It really was the crux of us getting together as musicians to form this band. The band is called the Lab Lords, and so that's our project that kind of sprouted from this video. So one thing leads to another, which is another thing that people should realize is like you just don't know, going back to what I was saying is you don't know where things can lead to. So trust the process, it's a big for me, it's a big thing to trust the process because it's really led me to most of what I do is from trusting the process, and then you just end up meeting somebody who wants you to do TV music with them, or they do the art in your music video, and then next thing you know, you're in a band with them. So you never know.
Yeah. 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 That's a big thing. I was just talking to someone about this podcast right here that I do. Like I I mostly see it as like separate from my music. I'm a music producer and like in school for that and everything. And I see it as like kind of separate from that because I just have a love of music and like meeting the people behind it as well. And then looking back on like the podcast and my music, there are people, multiple guests that I like meet through here, and I like have them on the podcast. And then I'm working on a song, and I'm like, okay, I need someone for this, and I start thinking back, and I'm like, oh, this person I had on 3 months ago or whatever, it would be perfect for it. And I reach back out to them, and so it's like people that are more or less like in passing, like coming through the podcast, I end up working with them on a song later on and things like
Yeah.
that. And so you really just like don't know where a connection or a relationship is going to go.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the cool thing about what we do is you just don't know, and there's a lot of collaboration that, sprout from just unforeseens. So I think it's good for everybody to keep that in mind. But it's hard, it's like that's like a lot of people want things that they can manipulate, like if I do this, I get this. With music, a lot of times it's not like that. It's you'll do this, but you never expected this happened, and you're expecting this to happen, and it doesn't, but this happens, and so you got to kind of go with the flow.
Yeah, yeah,
Sure.
definitely. And then I think the last question I have for you here is just in terms of whether it's the TV composing your own personal music, like the book, whatever it is, what level are you like hoping to reach with your career, or what's coming up next for Raymond LeVier? LeVier.
Uh, that's a good question. Part of me is just like day to day and like what do I have to do today? But my future goals is just more kind of more of the same, like just keep putting out quality content and keep staying creative and you know, keep my nose to the grindstone creatively and honoring the process of where it takes me on a daily basis and with that, hopefully like things just like a lot of stuff that's happened in my career is like nothing that I planned.
Yeah,
Um, so there's that. So, but I don't want to be so flitty and flighty where I'm like, well, it'll happen, man, because you got to make plans, it's like,
yeah,
um, but a lot of what's happened is just, come out of left field. But I want to continue to just stay creative and, I'd like to think that as years go by that like you keep getting better and better at what you do and you keep honing in on your craft and my drumming skills and my writing ability I think gets better. Um and that gets, a little more dialed in year by year. And it's a process, and a lot of things just don't happen overnight, and they take years sometimes to come to fruition. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
Yeah. No, it does, and I mean, it may take years, but I'm hoping whatever the goals are come to fruition from you, and I can't wait to see what happens for your career going forward from now, and hope and with this book especially, like it sounds super cool. The general breathing techniques. I know the book is focused on drumming, but it sounds like it could be applied to so many things beyond drumming,
yeah,
and so
it totally can. I mean, the first half of the book is really there's discussion of drumming, but it's really about the breathing
it's the
modality
actual techniques.
and what each technique does physiologically in the body,
Mhm.
and what it can do to bring you up or bring you down and calm you. Um, and then there's some discussion about neuroscience from Dr. Andrew Huberman that talks about how to learn skills faster. So whether you're a musician or not, I think everybody can benefit from learning skills faster. And um, just I think if you gain one thing, if you get something and you get one new thing that sticks with you for the long term, I think it's worth it. So if somebody gets one thing out of my book, I would be happy about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Ray, thank you so much for coming on. I had a great time learning so much about you and your career. I'll leave some of your links and like social media and stuff down below, but if there's anything you want to promote to the audience, feel free to do that now.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Yeah, just look out for the Lab Lords. We're going to be dialed in pretty soon, and we're going to start gigging. And the book, of course, you can buy it through Hudson Music. If you go to hudsonmusic.com and just do a search for Ray LeVier, it's called Drumming and Flow. And I have a documentary that is hopefully going to be aired on Hulu and Netflix pretty soon. Um,
Awesome.
it's called it's called I forgot the name of the documentary now. Um, oh God,
That's no problem.
dude, wow. Um, um, God, why am I spacing? And now I'm getting nervous about spacing on it, and I'm like clamming up here.
Yeah,
Uh,
no worries. Don't worry about it.
wow.
There, there's a documentary. That's the important thing.
It's a documentary, and so that's coming out, and it's kind of about it's called Humanity Stoked. It's
There we
how
go.
so Humanity Stoked, and it's about how everybody is a unique individual, and how we can that's what makes life interesting, is the fact that we're all different, and nobody's the same, and there's diversity, and that's something that's really important. And there's a theme of skateboarding and surfing that goes through. So there's a lot of uh, people that skated, like Dr. Andrew Huberman's in there. He used to be a skateboarder. And um, who's that guy? Neil deGrasse Tyson, the scientist.
Oh, that's awesome. Yes.
He's in there because he used to be a skateboarder. Who knew? So yeah, that's coming out, and Tony Hawk and all these badass skateboarders are in there, and artists. So keep an eye out for that. Humanity Stoked. And yeah, if anybody wants to check me out, I got a website, raylevier.com, and I'm on social media, same thing, Ray LeVier. Um, so yeah, that's about it.